The U.S. has pivoted. The post-World War II order is finished. Military punishment, trade route control, financial domination, they're all failing. The rules-based order is dead. Your stock market wealth is not safe. Your money is just a magic token. The China social credit system is the model. The Atlanticists are building their own, more sophisticated and ruthless. Palantir, Google, Apple, OpenAI, Meta are the new authors of empire backed by military and intelligence services. In return, they get access to your money, data, and digitize your life. Gaza is the warning. We opposing genocide will be the punished example. We stayed on their platforms. We didn't build alternatives. They know we are a captive audience. The system goes live by the end of 2026. Ukraine was the human sacrifice to destroy a Europe-Russia alliance, keeping Europe submissive, weak, and dependent. Now Europe is weaponized not for peace, but for recolonization. North Africa, the corridor. West Africa, the target. The Sahel has 1 or 2 years to prepare. Trump is remaking America as a white covenant republic and forcing this on Europe to restore colonial power. China knows Taiwan's unification is inevitable. The U.S. will be forced to act. The Atlanticists need blood and fire. You're not supposed to see this, but now you do. The empire will be digital, racial, and total. This is not theory. It's the script being written in real time. Watch, prepare, and share the hell out of this.
Police will be on their best behavior, because we're constantly recording, watching and recording everything that's going on. Citizens will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording and reporting everything that's going on. And it's unimpeachable. The cars have cameras on them. I think we have a squad car here someplace. But those kind of applications using AI, if we can use AI, and we're using AI to monitor the video, and if there's a problem, AI will report the problem and report it to the appropriate person, whether it's the sheriff or the chief or whomever we need to take control of the situation. We have, same thing. We have drones. We just, if there's something going on in a shopping center, and I'll stop, a drone goes out there, get there way faster than a police car. There's no reason for, by the way, high-speed chases. You shouldn't have high-speed chases between cars. You just have a drone follow the car. I mean, it's very, very simple. And the new generation of autonomous drones.
My very specific question for you, right, is that you're an investor in AI. You're deeply invested in Palantir, in military technology, in technologies of surveillance, in technologies of warfare, and so on, right? And it just seems to me that when you tell me a story about the Antichrist coming to power and using the fear of technological change to sort of impose order on the world, I feel like that Antichrist would maybe be using the tools that you were building, right? Like, wouldn't the Antichrist be like, great, we're not going to have any more technological progress, but I really like what Palantir has done so far, right?
Yeah,
I mean, isn't that a concern? Wouldn't that be the irony of history would be that the man publicly worrying about the Antichrist accidentally hastens his or her arrival?
There are all these different scenarios. I obviously don't think that that's what I'm doing. I
mean, to be clear, I don't think that's what you're doing either. I'm just interested in how you get to a world willing to submit to permanent authoritarian rule.
Well, but again, there are these different gradations of this we can describe. But is this so preposterous, what I've just told you, as a broad account of the stagnation that the entire world has submitted for 50 years to peace and safetyism? This is 1 Thessalonians 5:3. The slogan of the Antichrist is peace and safety, and we've submitted.
This is Revelation chapter 13 and verse 15. And it reads, "And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed." All right, I want to start off by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Ruach Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who are the elders of Yasha Allah. And a sincere salutation to all you Akim, who are preaching this word and believing this word, and to the Akwath, who are believing this word, in all truth and in sincerity. All right, and I'd like to go into a lesson based on the clip that you just saw referencing what this guy termed as the New Atlantic Order. All right. And when you go into that term, all right, the New Atlantic Order refers to a historical framework primarily developed by Patrick O. Coors that analyzes the transformation of international politics, particularly in the transatlantic realm during the long 20th century from 1860 to 2020. All right, and this guy is using the phrase New Atlantic Order to describe the order that's being set up now, all right, which is this digital system, all right, that's referenced in Revelation, the 13th chapter. All right, the Heavenly Father spoke of these things before we actually lived through it. All right, and now it's beginning to manifest itself in these last days. All right, because when you deal with this beast, all right, this Revelation 13:1, and I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. This is describing a system. All right, this is describing a rulership, if you will. All right, those 10 horns is describing the European Union. All right, it started off with the 10 nations and now it's expanded. All right, and then you deal with the 7 heads going into the NATO treaty. All right, so the EU and NATO have created a system, all right, that basically governs the world that we know today. And the whore that sitteth upon that beast is Babylon the Great, which is America. All right, so what this guy is describing as the New Atlantic Order is where this system is being transitioned into. All right, and the reason I want to start off with Revelation 13 and 15 is because when you deal with this, it says, and he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. Now, when you go into this word killed, all right, it's apokteno. All right, it says to kill in any way, whatever. That's the first of outline of biblical usage. But when you go into the root word, it says of separation. All right, and this is what he kind of referenced. All right, when he spoke of the social credit system in China. All right, because contrary to popular belief, even though it appears that China and America are on the opposite sides of the coin, they're still pushing that image. All right, the image of this beast system is still being pushed through Asia. All right, let's go here. This is 2nd Esdras chapter 15. All right, and I'm going to start at verse 46. And thou, Asia, that art partaker of the hope of Babylon, and art the glory of her persons, woe be unto thee, thou wretch, because thou hast made thyself like unto her, and hast decked thy daughters in whoredom, that they might please and glory in thy lovers, which have always desired to commit whoredom with thee. Thou hast followed her that is hated in all her works, and inventions. All right, therefore saith Yahweh Shema Shai, I will send plagues upon thee, widowhood, poverty, famine, sword, and pestilence, to waste thy houses with destruction and death. All right, because ultimately China's vision for the future, all right, is to make themselves like Babylon the Great, which is America, but a better version. All right, this is why they're in many ways ahead of Babylon the Great, which is America, in the image. And the guy referenced it, the social credit system. All right, in China, you can't speak against the government. Because everything is so digitized in China, they can just separate you from their system. So if you speak against them, all right, because everything is digital and for the most part cashless, they can decide what you are and are not able to purchase. That includes train tickets. That includes plane tickets. All right, that they can determine where you can buy at, meaning you may not be able to buy outside of a 5-mile radius of your home. All right, and this is the ultimate vision of the elites of this society. All right, to have full control over the people, all right, through this digital system. All right, and that's what's headed. That's what the world is heading to. You know, a lot of our people, especially, you know, amongst the other nations as well, but our people especially, you know, when they hear about the will of the Lord, they resist it because they think something better is going to happen. This is where the world is headed. Digital captivity. All right. Right now, the world is in a form of captivity through fiat currency, but through the digital system, the noose will be tightened. All right. You won't have the ability to speak against the system. You won't have the ability to speak against the crimes of the beast system. Otherwise, you should be killed, and that can go into physically killed or just separated from the system, meaning they can cut off your means of accessing necessities. All right. And that leads us to what? To the mark of the beast. All right. Because that is the icing on the cake, if you will. Really, that's the last leg and one of the most important legs of this system being fully transitioned, is having people all chipped and put into a system where you can see and automate a system of control where they can't speak against the system. And that's how we know it's the chip. It's not talking about an embargo act. All right, now let's go to it. This is Revelation 13 and 16. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. All right, and this leads us to the one of the biggest prophecies in the New Testament in Revelation, and that is the prophecy of the mark of the beast. And we can see the infrastructure being laid out. All right, more and more things have moved to a cashless digital system. And while it's being painted as peace and safety, while it's being painted as convenience, really it's just a means of control. And China is a perfect example of it with the social credit system. If you speak against the system, if you go against what the government does, right or wrong, you can be punished. All right. And that's the wet dream, if you will, of the elites of this society. And what another thing the guy mentioned was that they're using these tech guys, these big tech companies. All right. Backed by military to do what? To introduce this system, but most importantly, to enforce it. That's why scriptures say causeth all. All right. When you go into that word causeth in the Greek, all right, it is poeo, and it says to make. All right. I want to go down to the Strong's definition. It says to make or do in a very wide application, more or less direct. So they're going to move people toward convenience, but eventually they're just going to make it mandatory. Similar to how your debit card, there was a point in time where the debit cards didn't have an RFID chip. All right, they were just a piece of plastic with a magnetic strip. Then it got to a point where they introduced the chip into the debit cards. And then they got to another point where you couldn't use your legacy card. You had to have a chip card or you couldn't access your money. And the groundwork is being laid out. All right. Trump, which was a Trojan horse for the working class, so-called white people, was sold as this guy who was going to return privilege to the average so-called white citizen. Really, he was a Trojan horse to continue the forwarding of the image. All right, because you notice when he got in, he started to bring the tech guys in. All right, you saw the famous inaugural ceremony. I believe it was the inaugural ceremony where you saw Elon Musk, you saw Jeff Bezos, you saw Mark Zuckerberg. These are all considered titans in the tech world because they control these huge platforms where billions of people have to go for a lot of their needs. And where the system is heading is a digital form of captivity, where Esau doesn't have to follow you around. He doesn't have to come knock on your door. He can watch your movements digitally, and he can control your movements digitally. That is where the world is headed. And they're painting it as convenience. They're painting it as a means of safety. All right, by saying, look, this is how we keep all of the illegals and the criminals out. This is how we're able to track who comes in and out of the country. If you're not doing anything wrong, you shouldn't have anything to hide. And these are slogans that they're going to use to peer pressure, all right, the majority of people on earth to take this system without realizing that it's just another form of captivity. All right, this is 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 and 3. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. And this is why we look for a heaven and earth wherein dwells righteousness, because ultimately the schemes and the plans of those who are in control of this world is to put the world in deeper bonds and chains. It's not to free humanity. It's not to create a place where the average person that lives on the planet can thrive and enjoy the planet. It's the exact opposite. Those who are in control of the world do not have good intentions for the average person living on this planet. That is the reality. And if the Lord doesn't intervene, all right, there will be no flesh left to save. All right, let me get that. This is Matthew chapter 24 and 22. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. So it's all about the elect. All right, the remnant of the nation of Israel, whom the Lord has predestinated to save according to his mercy and grace. But this world is headed for destruction. And our people especially don't realize that the world that they're building, you're not included. All right. The only reason you were included in the world that we live in today was because of the human resources that was needed to build this system up. They no longer need you Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. And that's why they have no plans to give you a seat in the world that they're building. All right. As this digital form of Rome is being established, they're going to lock you Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans out. AI is going to take up most of those jobs, which is why, all right, they're putting things in the books to really come down with great wrath and to really remove people off the planet, to really keep the numbers of people that are on the planet low. This is why they push this agenda of overpopulation. When really you look at the data, is the planet is headed for depopulation. Because it's so hard to survive, people are having less children. But they're not going to tell you that because they want those numbers to get down to a controllable number, because they no longer need this many people on the planet, because they don't need the human resources anymore. AI is going to take up the majority of jobs that you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans work on this side. And then globally, they don't need this many people on the planet. So they're establishing this digital system, and then they're going to chip everybody, and then they're going to start to come down with great wrath. All right, they're going to come down with great wrath before that. But once everybody's chipped, they can now take the mask off. They don't have to pretend to be righteous. They don't have to pretend to have your best interests at heart. They can just be the devil. And if you don't like it, they can just cut your chip off or remove you from the equation. All right, and that is where the world is headed if the Lord doesn't intervene, man. All right, and the Lord said it before it actually played out. Before we lived through it, the Lord had already called it out, but he used it in dark sayings and parables because the Lord knew that everybody would be looking at the word, at the Bible. But only the elect would truly be able to read between the lines, so to speak, and get the knowledge and the understanding, most importantly, from what the Lord is saying. All right, and that's that this system is being pushed, and that Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, beginning with his elites, their intentions is to control everything through this digital system, but they're going to fail. All right. And make no mistake, their people are also included in that food chain. The working class in general is included in that food chain. All right. It's no longer about the commonwealth of Esau, Edom. Now they're only thinking about themselves concerning the elites. So now it's rich Edomite against poor Edomite. Really, it's the rich Edomites against everybody. They've put their own people as prey. And that's why you have a lot of people, a lot of so-called white people speaking against their own system, because they're now starting to realize that what's happening next is not in their best interest either. It was cool when it was just happening to all the minorities, but now that it's happening to them too, now they're saying we all bleed red. And that's just not the case. All right, this is Job chapter 20 and 22. It says, in the fullness of his sufficiency, he shall be in straits. Every hand of the wicked shall come upon him. All right. And when you go into this word wicked, it goes into the laborers, the workers. All right. Because you're going to have a lot of so-called white people that go up against their own government. All right. Because they realize what's being set up. All right. And they're going to resist. This is 2 Ezra chapter 15 and 14. Woe to the world and them that dwell therein. For the sword in their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. All right, because they're going to realize that they're being set up as well. That guys like Trump wasn't set up for their best interests. He was set up to rock them to sleep, giving them symbolic victories on camera and on TV like DEI, while simultaneously signing up legislation that's hurting the working class, whether it be so-called white people or Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Meanwhile, this digital system is continuing to push forward. And the last leg of it is really going to be the mandatory edict, if you will, of chipping, of putting that mark on you, in you, I mean. Because once that happens, there is no turning back. All right, and that's why it's so important concerning prophecy to understand what's happening around you through the spirit, not what you're being told by media. But only those who have eyesaw will really see and understand what's happening next. And as this guy termed it, the New Atlantic Order is basically Rome transitioning into a digital form. The legacy system is no longer working. It's no longer effective. The petrodollar system is no longer effective, and they're actively transitioning this system into something different. And this is what the Lord was telling us about, the hour of temptation. All right. This plan, all right, the schemes, the evil plans of the wicked. All of these things are written throughout the scriptures, but only the elect would understand these things and declare these things with understanding. All right, let's go back to Job. This is Job chapter 20. I'm going to jump down to verse 23. And it reads, when he is about to fill his belly, the Most High shall cast the fury of his wrath upon him and shall rain it upon him while he is eating. All right, because again, they're going to get close to accomplishing what they desire, which is to set up this digital system and to herd people in like cattle into this digital system. If you think about the implementation of AI and being able to upload data and read data in real time within seconds, that's the power of AI. It will automate the captivity. So Esau doesn't really even have to check on it. He doesn't even need physical taskmasters at a certain point. The digital system itself will self-enforce. If they can determine, look, if you break this law, if you speak against this, they could just turn off your ability to purchase train tickets and food, or you can't buy anything past a certain region. At that point, that's automated captivity. And while they're saying sweet words and talking about peace and safety and security, this is in the back of their mind. This is the schemes that they're having that you don't have access to, that the cameras can't go into those rooms. But the Lord saw it. All right. I want to get this real quick in Isaiah. There's Isaiah chapter 29 and 15. Woe unto them that seek deep to hide their counsel from the Lord, and their works are in the dark. And they say, who seeth us and who knoweth us? And the beauty of it is that the Lord called this out before these people were even born. You know, the Lord, before this country was established, the Lord had already called out the intentions, declaring the end from the beginning. And now we're living through it. And whether they call it the New Atlantic Order or whatever terms they want to use, the Lord called it, you know, the image of the beast, that it should be worshipped. And those who will not worship this beast, those who will not consent, all right, will be killed, either physically or just separated from this system completely. All right, real quick, this is Isaiah chapter 46 and verse 9. Remember the former things of old, for I am power and there is none else. I am power and there is none like me, declaring the end from the beginning, and from ancient times the things that are not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand, and I will do all my pleasure. So we're watching these things unfold through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shai, as the Lord said that they would. You know, the Lord gives us the broad strokes and then we live through those details. All right, this is Habakkuk 2:3. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not tarry. Hey, so with that, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rokah Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who are the elders of Yashar Allah, and a sincere salutation to all you Akim, who are preaching this word and believing this word, and to the Akwath, who are believing this word, and all truth and in sincerity. Shalom.